There we go. Hi. Hopefully now you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me or not hear me. Hi. Thank you for joining in, whether you're joining in right now live or you're going to listen to this later on a podcast or on YouTube. So this is something new. So you probably follow R3 if you're watching in here on Facebook Live, but we are a youth serving organization, and we have different focus areas, but all of it is geared towards youth and young adults. And we help middle and high school students. We help youth that are 18 to 24. We help with tutoring and mentorship and entry into the workforce and certifications. And there's all sorts of things that we help with. But one of the things that it's always been on my heart to also focus on or be a focus area is with mental health. And so as we have been able to grow our team a lot more, we've started to push for content and creating content that is entertaining and educational. And I think that it's something that's really important. And one of the things overall as youth organizations that I've always observed is that the best place to reach youth is on social media and through content. And a lot of the time, a lot of youth serving organizations don't make that a priority. And so that is something that we're wanting to do. It's something that we're wanting to change and, I guess, do better at overall. And so one of the things that we're going to begin to do is Facebook Lives like this, creating YouTube content, as well. And sometimes it's going to be different things. Sometimes it's going to be just for the sake of it being funny and entertaining. Sometimes it's going to be for the sake of it being educational. It is most definitely not always going to be me on here talking and sharing my thoughts. But I think it's just important that we begin utilizing our platform and our reach with the families that we serve and the youth that we serve to educate and to bring awareness. And so I guess the show or segment that I will continually do that I'll be in charge of is mental health, which we're calling Mind Matters. And we will consistently go live weekly. That could be on any given day. Hopefully it's every Thursday so it becomes consistent. But it's really, I want it to be very relaxed and not so serious, because mental health is a very serious topic, but it can also be something that I think people can become uncomfortable with. And so I feel like if we can make it comfortable, then we can have harder conversations and have important conversations that I think that we should be able to have, whether you're a parent, whether you're a young person. So that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first thing that I want to be doing is open up with something fun. And so for me, I wanted to call this up a pop culture minute, just to talk about something that's happening in pop culture. And because I need to make sure it's geared towards mental health, I did consider that as well. So what I picked that I wanted to talk about was the biggest thing that everybody's been obsessed over since it began quite a couple of weeks ago or months ago, which is the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Anytime we talk about any kind of these topics, I'm not here to, I don't want to make anything political or anything like that. It's more just about having like a fun and conversation to, break the ice. So I don't know if you've heard, but yesterday a verdict was reached, and it was reached in favor of Johnny Depp, and I believe that there was still a count of defamation that was against Johnny Depp, but it was one count, and then everything else was just kind of out the window. And so before I started, I was kind of looking at some different articles here, just to kind of, look at what was being said. And so like, one of the things that I saw yesterday this morning was that Amber Heard's team is wanting to, it's not called a rebuttal, but I can't remember the name. I wish I know I had just seen it in one of these articles, but pretty much that they're going to, I guess, fight back against it, whatever the legal term for fighting back against the decision is. That's what they're planning on doing. It's interesting to see all the things that become or start to be said once these verdicts are reached. I always like to think about, like, if Amber Heard had won and Johnny Depp had lost, what their team would say or what they would start talking about. Oh, appeal, that's the word, is appeal the verdict. So, like this one says, the lawyer of Amber Heard says she believes the jury in the defamation case brought against the actress by her ex-husband was confused, and Heard plans to appeal the verdict. And I think they're building this case on the fact that Amber Heard did win in the UK, and not here. So, personally for me, while it was pretty entertaining to watch, especially on TikTok, like all the different things that, people would create about the trial that was going on. I feel like this time around, I wouldn't care enough, to watch this play out again. But I'm 27. I don't think I have seen, and maybe it's because of social media, but I don't think before I have seen a case this public, with the results being this public, and I've never experienced how everyone really does get passionate about who they're rooting for. So I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see what will happen. And the reason that I picked this as a pop culture moment in relation to mental health is because if you watch the trial, a lot of what both of them claimed had to do with not only physical abuse, but mental abuse as well. And if we look at the evidence, regardless of who did win or didn't win, I do feel like, personally, I do feel like there was a lot of evidence that pointed to the fact that Johnny Depp did experience a lot of emotional abuse and how that affected him mentally. And I think there was a lot of evidence that Amber Heard would have experienced it as well, because while in this trial there wasn't evidence of him abusing Amber Heard physically, there was a lot of evidence that showed that he would get angry and he, would kind of have outbursts. And I think when that happens, anyone can, become hurt by that, or that can be traumatizing. So that's why I picked that for the pop culture moment today. And it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. So we'll see what happens from there. So now I want to talk about mental health in the news. This is something that's also been a pretty hot topic that I've seen. And recently, in San Antonio, locally, it was on social media a lot and across the news because of the office of Lucy Adam Clark, that she is allowing 4-day, or her office is allowing 4-day work weeks now. And there was a lot of, positivity towards that. And so I looked at this article that is from the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, which is where, I myself am certified as a youth mental health first aid instructor. The National Council for Mental Wellbeing is who certifies me. So this article If we, let me see, I can blow it up. Yeah, I guess it's as big as I can make it. It says, now more than ever, employers must provide mental health support for employees. So while Lucy Adam Clark made this 4-day work week because of the gas prices, because of, or the economy, or what's going on, that's why those decisions were made. This article is talking about the fact that COVID-19 is still playing a part in people's mental health and returning to work. And so, through this article, it talks about the fact that employers need to recognize that there's going to be a lot of anxiousness and nervousness of people returning to the workplace. So, for those of you that are watching, I'd like for you to comment what you think on the matter. I personally feel like we have gotten to a place with COVID-19 where while, all around the world, it still becomes contagious. There's still, outbreaks that happen. I think we've come to a place where we can make some informed decisions on how to remain safe in the workplace that should put a lot of people at ease with returning to the workplace in person. So I don't know if y'all saw, and I wish I could have pulled up the article, and maybe I can find it here. But Elon Musk, yesterday, I believe it was, had said to pretty much to his employees, I just found it right here. I'll pull it up right quick. That pretty much they needed to return to the workplace. Elon Musk tells Tesla employees return to the office or else. And this was, from what I read or what I understand, it was not only to his employees, but it was also to like his I don't want to say like board, but like management team. It wasn't just to the employees themselves. This was an expectation he had for everyone, and there were a lot of people, from what I understand, that were really against going back into the office, and it was all tied to COVID-19. There are companies like Google that have embraced the work from home like permanently, whether COVID-19 is an issue or not, whether the cases are high or not. They have embraced working from home. But company like Tesla, Elon Musk decided you have to come back into work, or the quote I read was, I'm going to assume that you have resigned if you don't come back into work. So that being said, this article ties into something like that, where it argues the fact that someone like Elon Musk that made this now a requirement, you have to come back in, you don't have an option. If you don't come back in, then you don't have a job. That he would need to then resource his team, everybody that works for him, with mental health resources because of the anxiety that can be caused returning to the workplace. And the article also talks about the fact that COVID-19 caused a lot of mental health crisis for people, and I completely agree with that. I completely agree that being stuck at home when we had the lockdown really affected a lot of people. I know at that time there was a lot of news about that, and because of social media, a lot of video and content surrounding the fact that people's mental health was being affected. I don't know how that would have worked out for me through the COVID-19 pandemic. I think the only time that we ended up in quarantine was not because of COVID-19. It was because of the snowvid that we experienced in San Antonio. And even then, we were still out and about, trying to get supplies and feed people and just, lollygagging around. And through COVID, we began serving meals and feeding people. So I never personally myself, came to a point where I was just stuck at home. But I know that there comes days where I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a day to myself. I just, want to take a break and just be at home. And after a full day of that, I'm like, I'm ready to not be at home. I don't want to just be at home by myself. So I can't imagine after months and months and months of that, how that could affect your mental health. So that portion I completely understand. Um, Maybe somebody who has quarantined since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, I can understand a hesitancy to come back out into public. Um, I I would say my only concern, because again, I'm not here to make anything political. I'm not here to, say this is the way it is. I would say my concern is that for people who say this is going to affect my mental health, to physically be at the workplace and you need to provide me resources to deal with that, or options to not be at work because it'll affect my mental health. I would say, are you not going into public at all then? Because if you were going from your house straight to work and nowhere else at all, maybe just to put gas, okay, makes total sense because you're not even going into public in general. However, if you are traveling to even the grocery store, if you are going out to eat to a restaurant, if you are going to a mall, those places, while they still have some what do you call them, like, not restrictions, but I guess things in place to help with social distancing, you're still putting yourself at risk by being around other people. So would stores need to provide you mental health resources to be shopped at? Would a restaurant need to provide you mental health resources so you can eat there? So I think that was my view on this article, that while I agree perhaps providing mental health resources for people who are still experiencing a mental health crisis because of quarantine, that makes total sense. I don't know how I feel about employers needing to provide those resources now in order for someone to physically come into the workplace. So I don't know. That's my personal thought. I'd love to see what you guys think about that. If you can, comment and share what you think. I do feel like things like that could, though, on the opposite end, be positive, because perhaps giving incentives will draw people back into work. I don't necessarily know that a mental health incentive would bring people back into work, but you never know. I don't know if that's a concern for people still, or a widespread concern, or if the community hearing this now or watching, if that has been your concern, of, I want to go back to work, but I don't know how it'll affect my mental health because, of being out in public and being around other people, I'm going to be nervous and all that good stuff, because it's not something in particular that I think about or that I worry about. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Educate me. If I don't know what I'm talking about, please let me know. So that was mental health in the news. So next, what I want to go into, and usually after we do our opening segments, I definitely, this particular show, this particular time when we go live, I do want it to be educational and I want it to be informative. And I think it's important. I wrote an article, I wrote a blog. Tomorrow we're going to send out our very first newsletter called R3 Monthly. And so we were putting all the content together for that. And I wrote a blog article about mental health first aid and the fact that we offer youth mental health first aid training now. And that was the first time that we began to focus on programming that wasn't just for youth, because ever since we've opened, everything that we have done, all the programming we've done was geared toward youth, and offering youth mental health first aid was the first time that we are providing something for adults or for youth workers that still relates to youth, but the training itself is not for a youth. The training is for a youth worker. So I wrote an article about why youth mental health first aid, why is that something that we're offering? And I think it's it's always been there as far as something, revive, renew, restore. Those words in R3 are about a revival in the mind, renewing of the mind, reviving of the mind. So I believe we've always been about a transformation of the mind. And when you're talking about mental health, you're talking about mind matters. You're talking about things that you're thinking about, things that, or how you deal with something, or how you, what happens as you experience something, or what you do with the past experience. All of that is mental health. And so I think it's important now more than ever, especially with everything that's going on in the world. Without mentioning anything specifically, I think that if adults, if parents, if families would become more educated in understanding a mental health crisis and understanding what mental health is, I think that we could be, or could make, a very positive impact in the lives of a lot of youth, where right now I think a lot of people don't understand. Sometimes don't want to understand, but sometimes don't understand or are not educated enough in mental health to be able to help a young person that is going through a mental health crisis. And they may not even know that the youth is experiencing a mental health crisis. The youth themselves may not even know they're experiencing a mental health crisis. Why? Because, so I'm a Hispanic. And not saying that this was the case in my household, but I know that in the Hispanic community, specifically with mental health, it's not something that we particularly talk about. It's not something that is comfortable to talk about. I can say that, I've personally heard, with youth and growing up, that it's chiflazón when that happens. You're just being chiflado. And I think those statements are made because there is a lack of understanding and there is a lack of education. In the article or in the blog that I wrote, I talk about the fact that I do think we've done a better job at reducing the stigma of mental health, which is the weirdness of it and the fact that, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about Bruno, no. I think we've done a better job at that, but I still think that now, and it's not like, there is no stigma on mental health or talking about mental health, but I feel like it's better than it was before, but the problem is that now people know about the word mental health, but there is no understanding behind it. There is no education behind it. And I think it's still looked at as something very negative. And, without even understanding what that even is. So that's why this content, or this, stream, or these videos that we do, I want it to be educational, because I think that is a big gap. And that is the reason why we offer youth mental health first aid certifications, because some people just do not know. Another thing that I personally, I am a pastor, I am a believer in Jesus, and sometimes mental health doesn't belong in the faith world. I'm not saying that's the case, but there are a lot of people that believe that. And I think it becomes a big challenge there of, the understanding of, the way that I had talked about a year and a half ago with a counselor, and it was also on Facebook. And we talked about the fact that I'm a believer, but I still need to wear glasses to see. And so these glasses are, to me, what education would be when it comes to mental health. So I think even in faith communities, it needs to be better understood what mental health means and why it's important to be educated in it. So I keep using the word. So you might be asking, what is mental health? So mental health describes a person's thoughts, feelings, and actions. So as I mentioned when I started talking about in this segment, mental health does affect your thoughts. It affects how you think about things. It affects what you think about. It affects how you experience something. While you may find enjoyment, in something, someone that has a mental health challenge or is experiencing a mental health crisis may experience it a whole different way. And I'm going to give you an example. Every year we do events for Christmas. Ever since that we have been a nonprofit organization, and this year we are on our third year, where we celebrated our third year. So I think that was 2 Christmases so far, or 3. I don't know, but we've done events every single year. So we now have a team. We've had volunteers. We've had staff that have now helped us. And I think for me, I'm like, wow, this is such a beautiful experience. The fact that we get to deliver gifts, we get to have families here, we get to produce these fun events where we get to, decorate ornaments and have Christmas-based games and have Christmas foods. And, it's so much fun. But that's based off my experience that I had a great childhood. That's based off the experience that I had a Christmas tree and I had Christmas presents, and we didn't always have a lot of Christmas presents. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't, but I knew that every December I was going to get a Christmas present. That is my personal experience. So when it comes to Christmas, my thought on it is positive, and I'm going to experience that as a result in a very positive way. But someone who did not have that experience for Christmas, which we've seen the young people come through our doors that's not their experience, and they don't have the Christmas tree, and they don't get the Christmas gifts, and they don't have those beautiful moments because some of them don't have parents and they don't have their own families to celebrate that season with. Their experience is going to be very different than mine was. So their thought about it is going to be very different. So I feel like when it comes to learning or understanding or being educated about mental health, I think you also have to become very empathetic and understanding that someone else's experience is going to be very different than yours. And it's not about the fact that you experience something in a positive way or a negative way, but how is someone else experiencing it and why are they experiencing it like that? It affects their feelings. That ties into something like, for Christmas, for me, I love Christmas. Someone else's feelings toward Christmas might be completely different because of their past experiences, and it's going to affect them sometimes in a negative way. That whole season, the whole, all December. And I keep coming back to Christmas, but it's just because it's the best example I have of how experiences can vary and how you can experience trauma as a young person, and then someone else may not experience trauma around that event, and you have completely different experiences, and you're going to think about it a different way. And mental health also affects your actions. It affects what you do. It affects what you desire to do. It affects how you want to do it. Some people don't want to be around people. Some people don't want to talk to a lot of people. Some people can be in a room of people, but I don't want to talk to you. And some people, like myself, they're okay with that. I want to talk to you. I'm okay with talking to you. I can be in a big room of people. Again, all of it is based off your personal experience. So that is mental health. That's kind of the basis of where we're going to build everything else that we do in the coming weeks that we talk about. Mental health is about a person's mind and their thoughts, feelings, and actions. So young people with good mental health will feel in control of their emotions, and they will have good cognitive functions and positive interactions with people around them. And on the opposite end, young people with negative mental health or bad mental health or unhealthy mental health will feel they're not in control of their emotions. And that's where you'll find that they, something as simple as thinking very negatively about yourself or about a situation, or consistently thinking about a negative outcome, All those things are to be considered when thinking about mental health. So now that we understand what is mental health, so now we think about, okay, so then what is a mental health challenge? So a mental health challenge can be around mental illness, a mental condition. It could be a mental breakdown. It can be a nervous breakdown. It can even be burnout. And I think that last one, so all the ones I described are probably, when you think about a mental health crisis, you probably think about mental illness, mental condition, mental breakdown, nervous breakdown. You probably think about the absolute worst, like, level 100, you're out of there, in uneducated ways. You could be like, oh, that person's just crazy. That's probably what you might think about when you think about mental health. But this last one here, which is burnout, that is a mental health challenge, and anyone can experience burnout. Anyone can. Burnout. I learned about burnout when I was going to school, when I was in college, which I've talked about several times. I have never graduated. I didn't finish. I have all these student loans, and I went to school for 5 years, changed my major so many times. I have absolutely nothing to show for it. But I learned about it in would have been my history class, I think, because my history teacher, she was a really, really cool lady, but she, said, if you don't try to prioritize or learn how to study and break down all this work that you have, what's going to happen is you're going to get burned out. It's going to cause burnout. And I have seen so many students drop out because of burnout, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I've never experienced burnout. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure you made that up. But burnout is a real thing, which is where you come to a point where, you can be burned out from work, where the negativity in the workplace is so intense that mentally you no longer want to be a part of that situation. It could be burnout from family, where the family situation is so negative that you're burned out from being around your family because it causes a very negative mood. It causes negative thinking, things like that. So that is a mental health challenge as well. So it's not just the most intense level 100, situation. It could also be something like burnout that is common, that a lot of people experience. And then it takes the joy out of things that we do. Because at one point you may have enjoyed your job, you may have enjoyed being around friends and family, but because you're burned out, it's not even that you don't want to enjoy it, it's that you can't when you come to that point. And that all has to do with taking care of your mental health. Now, let me say this, because this is truly how I feel. And I feel like it can... Wouldn't it be funny if I started coughing? I just thought about that right now because I was about to choke on this water. Like, that is so embarrassing if I start to cough. I don't even know what I would do. Coughing violently. I don't even remember what I was talking about. It literally is just gone completely. If someone in the comments can refresh my memory, because it seemed like I was about to say something really smart and really important. Because I know I was talking about burnout. Yeah, don't know. Someone can comment and remind me. I'll come back to it. But so mental health challenge is mental illness, mental condition, mental breakdown, nervous breakdown, or burnout. And I remembered now. Okay, so a lot of people like to use the term my mental health, and they like to use the term or the phrase, my mental health is not good, or I really need to work on my mental health, or things like that. And while all of that is completely true, I think, number one, it's important to understand what you mean when you're talking about your mental health, because having a bad day doesn't mean that your mental health is bad. Having a sad day doesn't necessarily mean my mental health is in poor condition. It can be a symptom, or it can be a sign of poor mental health. If it's more than one day, absolutely. But having rough days, I didn't have a very good day today, that doesn't necessarily mean that your mental health is declining, that your mental health is in a bad state. These things just happen because we're human and we're going to have negative experiences. So negative experiences don't equal poor mental health. That being said, it is still extremely important to take care of your mental health. Going back to something as simple as burnout. I said everyone can experience burnout, right? How do you not experience burnout? Well, it's still important to then create barriers where this particular group of people, the situation, is causing the burnout to happen. So I'm going to be proactive in making sure that I stay a distance away because I do need to protect my mental health. And again, we're not talking about mental health crisis level 100. We're talking about I need to be able to have joy coming to work. I need to be able to have joy talking to my family. Therefore, I'm going to create this, I'm not going to talk to you for a little bit because I need to make sure that mentally I stay sane and I stay okay, It's really that simple. It is definitely, and we're going to talk about those things, it's definitely crisis situations, but it's also things that can be day-to-day very simple. So why is this important? Why is what we're talking about right now important? I wanted to show you all this, which is mental health by the numbers. Let me make myself smaller. So 1 in 5 children ages 13 to 18 have or will have a serious mental illness. And so we kind of went over that a little bit, which was, I can't see myself now. Mental illness is categorized under a mental health challenge. 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness begin by the age of 14, meaning that young people, and I strongly believe because of lack of education a lot of the times and because of the stigma of talking about mental health, that's why from a young age we don't begin to find ways or understand ways to cope with a declining mental health. Suicide is the third leading cause of death in youth ages 10 to 24, which, that right there, like the age 10 bracket, that's one of the reasons why we began our 3. I share all the time about an article that I read about a young boy that I believe he was 10 or 11, went and hung himself in his closet and committed suicide because his friends told him to do so. Now that is bullying. It's that's the category of cyberbullying. But mentally, the way that affected him, that affected his thoughts, that affected his feelings, ultimately affected his actions. All of it led one to another. And so I don't think this is something that we need to be very not urgent about. I think this is a very big deal because that happened here in San Antonio. The article, now it's been 3 years, so I would have read that in 2019. But that is still something that is happening now. That is still something that is a crisis now. I don't know if y'all saw, if what news you watch, or if you've come across the fact that suicide has been something that has been coming up in the news a lot, and particularly connected to young people. I think one of the biggest ones was the young girl from Toddlers and Tiaras. That was something that had recently happened. That she's the little everybody knows her from the little meme that we send all the time. And she died by suicide. Kalia Posey. And I apologize if I mispronounced her name. But I found the article, so I'll share it just because it's what I'm talking about right now. It says, although she was an accomplished teenager with a bright future ahead of her, ultimately, in one impetus moment, she had the rash decision to end her earthly life. Her family said in a statement. And I think that right there should be the urgency for a lot of us. That word that says she made the rash decision in that moment, because perhaps there was no way for her to cope with the thoughts that she was having, with the experience that she was having. Mentally, there was no way for her to have a release or to have even the slightest bit of hope that anything was ever going to get better for her. And I'm not saying at all that it is the case of the family, because they could have been extremely aware and they could have been extremely educated. I'm saying across the board, you could literally save a life, or you have no idea whose life you can save if you are educated and understand how to help someone so that they don't have that rash moment. A lot of the things that we learn in the certification process for youth mental health first aiders is a process to continue to talk to them and approach them, and to, I guess, be able to help them cope with the moment or the crisis that they're in, and also in getting them the, attention they need, even the medical attention that they need if it is to that point. But, being there for that youth and knowing what to do in that moment is incredibly important. So let me come back to, okay. So I need to go back to sharing this chart. I'm so sorry. This is new, all this stuff that I'm like, the way I'm displaying it and all that. So, okay. 90% of those who die by suicide have an underlying mental illness. And approximately 50% of students age 14 or older with a mental health illness drop out of high school. And that we completely understand and we do see happen because, if you are having a mental health crisis or negative mental health experience because of bullying, because of what you're being told, that changes the way that you think, that changes your experience that you have at school, that changes your ability to be able to learn, that changes your ability to be able to function well in school. Therefore, I'm not going to do well here. Nobody wants me here. I'm going to drop out. Then that creates, well, I dropped out, I'm never going to be anything. And then you have the thoughts of what people thought about you. And then the, where you see, or the lack of progress that you see in your life, all tied back to the one experience or the several experiences that you had in high school, then lead to this extreme feeling of hopelessness. And all of it leads one thing after another that then lead to those rash decisions. And so Youth Mental Health First Aid helps you to learn how to see the signs and symptoms, how to see those things in connection with one another before they become a crisis, before they become a real mental health crisis situation. Because like we talked about a little while ago in depth, not everything is a mental health crisis, but everything can become one if if it's left untreated, if it's left untalked about, if it's left, without putting any attention to it, or forgiving or healing or letting go of those things, sometimes can begin with just having that conversation, and knowing how to have that conversation is extremely important. And sometimes I feel like as adults, as parents, as, a family member or someone that's, active in the life of a youth, I feel like we can feel like we're not going to have an impact in someone's life. And we just can't think like that, because you don't know how much of a change a simple conversation can have in someone's life. You don't know, even a hug that you give at the right and the appropriate moment, what effect that can have. But I think because we don't understand what people go through in their minds, right, in general, not even talking, let's just get away from the science and the wording and the verbiage that's appropriate for mental health. I think we become very impatient, and then we're not empathetic about what someone is experiencing in their mind and how hard it is to actually fight through what is going on in someone's mind. And it doesn't matter if that's not how you perceive it. I perceive it that way. I'm thinking about it that way. And just because you tell me to think positively doesn't think I'm going to automatically think positively just because you said it. I feel like when parents tell youth that, or adults tell youth, oh, just don't think like that. Oh, I never thought about that before. Let me just not think like that. My bad. Do you not think that that young person desires to not think that way? Do you think they desire to just be in a funk every single day of their life? No, that's probably not. They don't wake up and think, today I'm going to be depressed. I think we can become impatient because lack of education, again, going back to that, because the stigma, which causes lack of education, we can become impatient, and then we can burn bridges where perhaps, yes, you could have been effective in that person's life. You could have been effective in that young person's life. But now, because you got frustrated, you said something or treated them in a way where now they're not going to come and talk to you. And maybe you were the one person they would have talked to, but now they no longer have that. And then the rash decisions come. So I think, and I hope that all these things that we talk about can open your mind to seeing the impact that you can make on someone's life, through being educated, through understanding a little bit more about a mental health crisis, a mental health challenge, and what that means and what that looks like, so that you can be empathetic. I know personally for myself, just in the past year, how much my thinking has shifted and changed about mental health in general. Not only from books, from reading and studying, and I became mental health first aid certified. Now I'm mental health first aid instructor certified. All these, I guess, like educational things help me see things differently, but I think also experiencing it with youth and then seeing the consistent patterns of what one youth experiences and how they think about something, like literally another youth completely unrelated can come through the door, and it's the same thing, and it's the same negative thinking, and it's always caused by some kind of terrible background or upbringing or something that was very traumatic for them, that now I can't even let you love me because the people that should have loved me didn't. So why would I think that you, as some random person I walked into the door, why would I think you're going to love me? And then how hard it is to unprogram that kind of thinking. And so there are youth around you that I'm never going to be able to reach, simply because I'm one person, but also because they don't know who I am, but they are comfortable with you. And perhaps if you knew a little bit more, if you were educated a little bit more, if you understood a little bit more, if you were a little bit more empathetic, then you could have that breakthrough moment with them, where everything shifts in their mind. I know when I first started working with youth, the moment that I always longed for or looked for was when you were working or talking with a youth for months, and then you have that breakthrough moment where mentally they're like, oh, I get it. It's just the coolest thing to see that breakthrough happen. And you yourself can cause that moment to happen for the young people that are around you in your life. And I the last thing I'll say is I've caught myself saying several times, young people mental health, and it's not at all that adults don't experience mental health crisis, mental health issues, mental health challenges. That's not the case at all. But, a little bit biasly, we are a youth serving organization. And so our bracket is 13 to 24. That's one. But two, if you look at the news, if you look at what's occurring, most of it, 80% of it, 90% of it is from young people or towards young people or experienced by young people. And so I think that says a lot about where we have to focus our resources and attention and time. I think that is it for me. So Carol says, I went through a horrible depression both times. As a Christian, I got through it with my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I agree with you. If you can't work in an office environment or any business because it affects you mentally, then I would think you would be affected by going out anywhere in public. I agree. That's what I was saying earlier. So this is the case if you're eating cake or eating it too, or a case of double standard where I can't work at the office because I fear getting COVID and that affects me mentally, but I'm okay to go shopping. Very true. I personally, I do agree with you, Carol, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. That was from our earlier segment of mental health in the news. So thank you, to everybody who has taken the time to sit here and to listen. And I hope that this brings value to your life. And I look forward to continuing to do this with each of you. Definitely please share. I think, one thing that you can do that doesn't cost you much is to be able to share or to tell someone else about, hey, watch the Facebook Live. The takeaway too is you can go to r3student.com/YMHFA, which is Youth Mental Health First Aid, if you didn't know. And you can go and you can learn more about our Youth Mental Health First Aid certification sessions, which we are now excited to host monthly, every single month. Our goal for the year of 2022 is 250 youth workers certified. I believe right now we are at 75 to 80. I'm not sure on the exact number, but we're pressing toward that goal. So if you would like to become mental health first aid certified, you can visit us at our website. If you are wanting to refer any youth to R3 or any of our services, you can go to r3student.com. We will be here every single week. So be on the lookout too for different things that we're about to start sharing. Tomorrow, like I mentioned, we're going to have our very first newsletter that's going to be pushed out, and that has our very first blog, which is about youth mental health first aid. Surprise. It's also going to have my R3 story from one of our youth. So this is content that is created detailing the experience of youth for youth. So there's a lot of exciting things that we're going to be pushing out. So I hope that you all be a part of it. And thank you for coming on here and spending some time with us. And we will see you guys very soon. Next week, actually, to be exact. So